This video features the best brawlers you need to be playing in December 2024. Balance changes just dropped, so let's see who's now at the top of the meta inside of Brawl Stars. Alright guys, the first brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Lou. Now Lou is a really solid brawler now because of the buff to his reload speed. Lou's reload time was decreased from 1.3 seconds to 1.1 seconds. This allows Lou to gain back ammo a lot quicker, and when combined with his supercharge gear, this helps Lou to hit more shots and charge up his super even faster. Now speaking of Lou's super, I mean that's probably one of the best parts of his entire kit. Since his super makes enemies slow down and makes maneuvering harder, enemies will attempt to escape by moving in the same direction, which makes attacks easier to hit and enemy movement to be more predictable. Also, just freezing up the enemies in general is super clutch to getting them down and locking down a part of the map. Now the thing that makes Lou extremely strong inside this meta is his hypercharged slushy storm. When activated, whenever Lou drops his super, any enemy near the landing spot gets stunned. Now even without the hypercharge, you can run his crowd surf gadget to instantly add 50% of the enemy's frost meter to anybody that is standing on your super. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be the twins Larry and Laurie. Now the twins have been nerfed a million times by now, but they didn't receive more nerfs in the recent set of balance changes. The most recent nerf was in November, where their health was decreased from 3,000 to 2,800 health, but it was still not enough to bounce them out of the meta. Without another nerf in December, they still remain to be one of the strongest throwers to run throughout the entire game. Now the thing that makes the twins so irritating is Laurie, like having to deal with them, especially since they're throwers. I mean, maps where there's walls is total hell against them. For example, you can throw Laurie into the face of weak enemies, and Laurie with his shotgun will probably be able to deal a lot of damage or potentially finish them off, especially if you are facing brawlers that do terrible burst damage up close. Those are the brawlers you want to be laning and having Laurie tracked down. Now just in general, like the twins are super hard to defeat, even more so when Laurie is on the field. Just having the ability to spawn in another brawler to attack and tank damage for you is insanely strong. Not only that, with Larry's attacks exploding twice, it makes it effective at maintaining control on the map despite the damage being nerfed into the ground. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Surge. Now Surge was finally nerfed in the recent set of balance changes. Surge's health was decreased from 3,300 to 3,000 health, which doesn't seem like a lot, but whenever a brawler receives health nerfs, it usually results in them dropping off at least a little bit in the meta. Don't get me wrong, Surge is still a top 10 brawler, but it's a little bit easier to take him down now. Now Surge can be a great brawler to play on maps with lots of walls. Surge can use his super to leap over walls and surprise enemies that could be trying to hide and heal up. This can be very effective, especially against brawlers like throwers who will have no shot surviving Surge from a close range. Now something that is definitely still going to keep Surge in the S tier is his hypercharge level 5. When activated, Surge upgrades to a 4th stage, giving his shots even more range than stage 3 and causing them to split every time. This hypercharge goes nuts because it's basically Surge like how he was upon his official release. He can just shoot in the general area of where the enemies are and easily hit the enemies for huge damage like it's no skill at all. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Gray. Now Gray might be a shock to a lot of you out there, but it's all because of his brand new hypercharge, Another Dimension. When activated, every time Gray or his allies use his teleporters, they receive a shield that initially blocks the next 1,000 damage being dealt to them. This makes Gray's teleporters even more valuable and even makes Gray himself more valuable in this meta. Having that 1,000 health shield is huge in keeping him and his teammates alive. Now even without the hypercharge, you gotta admit that Gray is still a solid brawler to play in the current meta. One of my biggest downsides about Gray is that his shots are hard to hit since they are so narrow, but that's just a skill issue. Gray with his portals allows him and his teammates to travel across the map faster to get to the game mode's objective or to escape dangerous situations in a pinch. Now something that truly makes Gray even better is his walking cane gadget. Activating this gadget allows Gray's next attack to pass through obstacles. If it hits an enemy brawler, it partially pulls the enemy to Gray, destroying all obstacles in the meantime. This helps Gray break the map to his liking and helps confirm kills when there are enemies hiding behind obstacles to try and hide from you. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Melody. Now just like Gray, the whole reason why Melody is rising in the meta is because of her brand new hypercharge Flash Mob. When activated, every time Melody uses a super, However, during the duration of the hypercharge, a hypercharged note revolves around her, which acts identically to a regular note but has a reduced damage of 600. Melody can have a maximum of 3 hypercharged notes orbiting her at any time, which overrides the normal note limit, allowing her to have up to 6 total notes. Now, even without the hypercharge, Melody has never fallen below the A tier since her release. Of course, Melody's best game mode is gonna be Heist because of her ability to constantly keep those notes orbiting Melody, and she can deal a lot of damage. Well, Melody was still a decent option outside of Heist, but it wasn't really as common. Now with this new hypercharge, expect to see more Melody sims running around in other game modes. Now, something that definitely helps Melody stay alive when she is hypercharged or just using her super in general is running her interlude gadget. When Melody has a monster note that revolves around her, she receives a shield that initially blocks the 10% of her health dealt to her. The shield's health is increased by an additional 10% if there are more notes, up until the shield blocks 30%, but it's going to be 60% with her hypercharge. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Gus. Now, Gus's super is such a great way for him to carry his entire team. If you are playing with a bunch of randoms, then you can use your super onto yourself every time and just increase your survivability so you can try your best to cause pressure by yourself. Even though Gus is a support brawler, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to get the win. Now, using your super onto yourself might be the best way to get the most amount of value out of Gus's spirit animal star power. Whoever you use your super onto next will be able to deal an additional 25% for the next 5 seconds, and that can come in clutch in whatever game mode you are playing in. You can use your super onto yourself, gain the shield, and then go aggro to defeat a weak enemy with the additional damage buff. Now, the cherry on top of Gus's entire kit is going to be his cookie popper gadget. When activated, all spirits on the map explode, dealing 20 to 40 damage to the enemies. This is such a great way to defeat your target if there is a ghost that spawns next to them. As soon as you connect with your shot, you need to be spamming your gadget button so you instantly pop that ghost and defeat the enemy. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Shade. Now, the broken thing about Shade is basically his entire kit. First things first, he has a trait where he can charge his super by staying close to the enemies, which already makes him even more annoying to deal with. And then he can walk over water just like brawlers like Juju, Angelo, and Eve. This will make him even more annoying to take down if you are playing on maps with lots of water. Now, the obvious thing that's broken about Shade is going to be his main attack and his super. For his main attack, Shade hugs his opponents with a wide embrace, accidentally dealing damage and doing more damage to those caught in the center of the hug. For his super, Shade leaves the physical world and can move directly through the environment. During Shade's super, he also gains a movement speed buff. Now, the reason why Shade isn't higher in this ranking is because he's not as versatile as people think. Like, yeah, Shade can hit through walls and go through walls with his super, but if everybody on the other team outranges him, Shade isn't going to be as effective. He does have the trait to help him charge up his super, but that isn't going to cut it against players that actually know what they're doing. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Byron. Now, Byron doesn't have a lot of health, so you need to use his long range main attacks to keep your distance. To take advantage of Byron's range is to chip away at the enemies with his stacking tick damage while also dodging incoming fire. Once they're low on health, you can use your super to finish off your targets. The great thing is that your super is a lobbing attack, so it can be thrown a good distance, but more importantly over walls and obstacles if you need to. Now, if you think about it, Byron is actually easier to play than some of the other longer range brawlers in the game. Since his range is long but his cooldown is slow, sharpshooting skills such as aiming ahead of the enemy's direction of travel are needed to utilize Byron well. However, with his fast projectile speed, aiming with Byron is easier than with other long range brawlers such as Brock or B. Now, indisputably, Byron is still going to be one of the best long range brawlers to play in the current meta after the balance changes. Byron's versatile kit makes him so valuable in team events. This is mostly because he can consistently heal his teammates while they work towards the event objective, with the healing giving more ease. In addition, he's also effective at preventing enemies from healing, making it easier to cripple the enemy team. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Daryl. Now, one of the ways you can use Daryl's super is to escape dangerous situations. If you are low on health, you can easily use your super to roll away and escape from the enemies. It's also worth noting that you can increase the range of his roll if you happen to roll over water. This is vital when escaping enemies, as the water could help in getting away from an engagement where you could have possibly have died. Now, another great way to use Daryl's super, and it's probably the most common way to use his super, is to get closer to the enemies. If you are struggling to get within range of the enemies since they all outrange you, using your super to quickly get within proximity of your target can be the perfect opportunity for a kill. Of course, this is the most popular method of using Daryl's super, since this makes him such a good rolling assassin. But Daryl is even better than he ever was before because of his hypercharged barrel of bullets. Daryl shoots his shotguns around himself during a barrel roll. Each shot will do 600 damage each. Now, even though the hypercharge itself isn't that impressive, being able to have the additional stat buffs from the hypercharge will only make Daryl stronger and make his ability to annihilate the enemies even easier. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Juju. Now, when playing Juju, I would recommend staying on the normal ground most of the time when facing close range brawlers. As long as you can outrange the enemy or don't have any problems connecting with your shots, you want to be standing on the ground to deal that extra damage. You can't ever go wrong with dealing more damage, so try and lane brawlers or play on maps where you can stay on the ground most of the time. Now, something that's still broken about Juju's kit that they didn't nerf in the recent set of balance changes is her star power numbing needles. Enemies hit by Juju's super attacks will be slowed down for 1 second. If Gregory wasn't already broken enough, having this star power will make it harder for brawlers like tanks and assassins to escape Gregory, and even make him a defensive tool to help Juju stay alive when being pressured hard. Well, anyway guys, if you guys enjoyed that video, I highly recommend you guys go check out this video right here.